Today we witness an event that is as revealing as it is alarming. Yemeni drones have struck the headquarters of the Communications Authority in Tel Aviv, severing the lifeline of Israel's digital infrastructure and effectively cutting off the country's internet. Now, pause for a moment and consider the implications, not just for the immediate operational chaos, but for what this signals about the vulnerabilities of highly centralized systems in modern states. This is not merely a military maneuver, it is a profound lesson in the fragility of infrastructure upon which so much of our economic, social, and political life depends. Imagine for a moment an entire nation brought to a standstill, not by a traditional military invasion, not by a missile barrage, but by a precise, targeted strike on a single building. This is exactly what happened when Yemeni drones struck the headquarters of Tel Aviv's Communications Authority, instantly cutting off the lifeblood of Israel's internet. Pause and consider the power of that image. One building, one carefully executed attack, and a technologically advanced nation finds itself grappling with disruption on a scale few could have imagined. The internet is no longer just a convenience, it is the central nervous system of modern society. Banking systems freeze, hospitals struggle to communicate, stock markets wobble, and government communications become chaotic. In a matter of minutes, the illusion of uninterrupted connectivity is shattered, leaving citizens and institutions alike exposed to uncertainty. What makes this event truly startling is the stark illustration of vulnerability in systems that are otherwise deemed impenetrable. Israel, renowned for its technological advancement and cyber capabilities, is suddenly confronted with the reality that no matter how sophisticated a system appears, centralization creates a single point of failure. And here is the first hook: the more we rely on centralized hubs for communication and data flow, the more attractive they become as targets for those who understand the art of disruption. A single well-placed strike can ripple through an entire nation, affecting everything from critical infrastructure to everyday life. It is a vivid reminder that in the modern age, power is no longer measured solely by military might, but by the capacity to protect the invisible yet indispensable networks upon which society depends. Consider also the broader societal implications. When communication networks collapse, the social fabric itself experiences strain. People are cut off from news updates, emergency services may be delayed, and businesses dependent on digital operations face immediate economic consequences. The attack exposes a paradox of modern civilization. The very technologies designed to connect and empower us simultaneously create unprecedented vulnerabilities. This is a second hook, a sharp reminder that technological progress carries with it risks that are often underestimated until catastrophe strikes. The reliance on digital infrastructure has become so deeply ingrained that any disruption, even temporary, reverberates across every sector: financial, medical, educational, and governmental, revealing weaknesses that were previously hidden behind a veneer of efficiency and convenience. The event also underscores the evolving nature of threats in the 21st century. Traditional defense strategies focus on borders, armies, and weapons systems, yet here, the battle is fought in bytes and circuits, in control rooms and server racks. The drones did not need to confront soldiers on the ground to achieve a strategic victory. They leveraged the centralization of technology itself to create chaos. This is the third hook: modern conflicts are increasingly waged not just in the physical realm, but in the digital domain, and the stakes are just as high, if not higher. The ability to disrupt communication networks can have cascading effects, paralyzing decision making, spreading confusion, and magnifying the impact of even a small tactical maneuver. Finally, the attack forces a reevaluation of what it means to be secure in an interconnected world. For policymakers, cybersecurity experts, and citizens alike, the lesson is clear: resilience cannot rely solely on strength or sophistication. The architecture of digital systems must anticipate disruption, redundancy must be built in, and contingencies must be prepared for events that seem, at first glance, improbable. Yemen's strike is a stark wake-up call, emphasizing that in the modern era, centralized infrastructure is a double-edged sword, offering efficiency and convenience on one side and creating vulnerability and exposure on the other. The scale and precision of this attack serve as both a warning and an urgent challenge to rethink the ways nations safeguard the invisible networks that underpin everyday life. What we are witnessing with the Yemeni drone strike is a striking example of asymmetric power in action, a phenomenon that challenges conventional notions of military dominance and strategic superiority. Think about it: a relatively small actor with limited resources compared to a technologically advanced state like Israel has achieved a disruption that reverberates across the entire country. This is the first hook. In the 21st century, power is no longer defined solely by the size of armies, the quantity of tanks, or the sophistication of fighter jets. Instead, it increasingly depends on ingenuity, precision, and the ability to exploit vulnerabilities in systems that are otherwise considered secure. Yemen, historically marginalized on the global stage, has demonstrated that unconventional tactics can produce disproportionate impact, upending assumptions about who holds influence in modern conflicts. Consider the technological dimension. Drones are not mere toys, they are sophisticated instruments capable of reconnaissance, targeted strikes, and coordinated operations that rival traditional military campaigns. What makes them even more dangerous is accessibility. Unlike aircraft that require enormous budgets, highly trained pilots, and extensive maintenance, drones can be acquired, modified, and deployed with far less overhead. This is the second hook. Asymmetric actors can now leverage technology to amplify their power exponentially, creating strategic consequences that far outweigh their apparent material capacity. A single, well-planned drone strike can destabilize national infrastructure, generate panic, and shift political narratives without engaging in conventional warfare. The psychological effect of such asymmetric actions is equally significant. When a nation accustomed to projecting power finds itself suddenly vulnerable to disruption by a comparatively weaker actor, confidence erodes, both internally and externally. Citizens, military planners, and policymakers all confront the unsettling reality that strength is situational, context dependent, and increasingly contingent on anticipating and mitigating unconventional threats. This is the third hook. The ability to instill uncertainty and challenge perception becomes as powerful as any physical weapon. Yemen's drones, in this sense, are not just tools of destruction, they are instruments of strategic messaging, signaling that no nation, however advanced, is invulnerable to creative and targeted disruption. Furthermore, this event illuminates the broader evolution of global conflict. Historically, wars were fought through sheer force, often with clear front lines and identifiable adversaries. Today, the battlefield is fluid and visible, and technologically mediated. Attacks can originate from remote locations, executed by actors who may not even appear on the conventional map of power. This is the fourth hook. Traditional metrics of military superiority, aircraft carriers, fighter jets, missile arsenals, are increasingly insufficient in predicting or preventing disruption. Asymmetric strategies exploit gaps in preparedness, redundancy, and foresight, creating high-impact outcomes with minimal exposure to retaliation or risk. The economic and political ramifications are equally profound. A single drone strike affecting critical infrastructure can disrupt markets, communication networks, and governance mechanisms, illustrating that power is no longer monopolized by the state alone. Non-state actors, insurgent groups, and technologically adept smaller nations now possess the capacity to influence outcomes far beyond what their size or GDP would suggest. This is the fifth hook. In an interconnected, digital, and highly centralized world, agility and precision often matter more than sheer scale. Finally, Yemen's demonstration of asymmetric power forces a reevaluation of strategic thinking. States can no longer rely solely on conventional deterrence or military superiority to ensure security. Preparedness now requires understanding unconventional methods, anticipating vulnerabilities in centralized systems, and developing flexible, adaptive strategies. The drone strike is a vivid lesson that the rules of engagement have shifted. The landscape of modern conflict rewards innovation and punishes complacency, highlighting that asymmetric power is not merely a tactical choice, It is an emerging paradigm that shapes the very nature of security, influence, and global stability. The Yemeni drone strike on Tel Aviv's communications authority sends shockwaves far beyond a single act of aggression, directly challenging the very foundations of national security. Pause and consider the gravity of a situation in which a country's communication networks, its arteries for governance, finance, emergency response, and daily life, can be incapacitated within minutes. This is the first hook. Modern national security is no longer defined solely by military might, missile defense systems, or conventional armed forces. It now encompasses the integrity and resilience of digital infrastructure, which forms the backbone of virtually every aspect of state function. When this infrastructure is disrupted, the consequences are immediate and far reaching, exposing vulnerabilities that traditional defense strategies cannot address. The strike exemplifies the fragility inherent in highly centralized systems. Critical data communication hubs and command centers are often concentrated in specific locations to optimize efficiency and management. While centralization provides speed and control under normal circumstances, it also creates high-value targets for adversaries. The drones did not have to penetrate heavily fortified military zones or engage in conventional combat. Instead, they exploited the structural weakness of centralization itself, hitting a single point that sends cascading effects through the entire nation. This is the second hook. Security today must account not just for external threats in the traditional sense, but for the vulnerabilities created by the architecture of the state itself. The implications extend into economic stability. Interruptions in internet and communication services halt financial transactions, disrupt supply chains, and can even cause stock market volatility. Banks and financial institutions reliant on uninterrupted digital networks may face operational paralysis, while businesses that depend on online connectivity suffer immediate losses. This creates a domino effect, where a strategic strike on communication infrastructure triggers economic instability that touches every citizen. The third hook is clear. In a world where economies and governments are tightly intertwined with technology, national security failures are not confined to military consequences, they ripple across every layer of society. Moreover, the strike underscores the evolving character of threats in the 21st century. Traditional military strategies emphasize borders, troops, and equipment, yet modern threats increasingly emerge from non-state actors or smaller states leveraging technology in innovative ways. Drones, cyber attacks, and digital sabotage have blurred the line between conventional warfare and clandestine disruption. Yemen's operation is a textbook example. A small, technologically capable force achieves a strategic effect that rivals larger, more resource-heavy operations. The fourth hook is profound. The locus of power is shifting, and national security can no longer be assessed by traditional metrics alone. Adaptation to new forms of conflict is no longer optional. It is essential for survival. The psychological impact on citizens and leadership is equally significant. When a nation's communication network is suddenly incapacitated, public confidence is shaken, emergency coordination is hindered, and the perception of state control is undermined. Panic, confusion, and uncertainty are powerful forces in themselves, influencing not only public sentiment but also political decision making. The fifth hook in modern conflict, perception and morale, can be as decisive as physical destruction. Vulnerability in the digital realm translates into strategic leverage for those who understand how to exploit it. Finally, this event challenges policymakers to rethink defensive strategies in a digital age. Protecting a nation now demands more than conventional deterrence. It requires comprehensive planning for cyber resilience, decentralized backup systems, rapid response protocols, and intelligence capable of anticipating asymmetric attacks. The Yemeni drone strike is a stark illustration that national security is no longer solely about defending territory or projecting power. It is about securing the invisible networks that sustain the life of a nation, preparing for threats that are fast, unpredictable, and technologically sophisticated, and recognizing that even the most advanced states are not immune to disruption. The drone strike on Tel Aviv's communications authority is not just a tactical event, it is a vivid illustration of a profound shift in global power dynamics that challenges long held assumptions about strength and influence. Consider this: for decades, military and economic power were often seen as the ultimate determinants of national dominance. Large armies, advanced fighter jets, nuclear arsenals, and vast economic resources were thought to secure a country's position in the international hierarchy. Yet here, a relatively small actor has demonstrated the ability to disrupt a technologically advanced state, forcing the world to confront the reality that traditional measures of power are increasingly insufficient. This is the first hook. Power is no longer solely measured in size or force, it is measured in agility, strategy, and the ability to exploit vulnerabilities. Modern conflict is no longer defined by conventional battlefields. The center of gravity has shifted from tanks, troops, and aircraft carriers to digital networks, infrastructure nodes, and technological hubs. The strike exposes a new kind of leverage where the most advanced nation can be undermined not by quantity of weapons, but by precision, intelligence, and innovation. The second hook lies in the asymmetry itself. The imbalance in resources no longer guarantees security. A smaller nation or non-state actor, if equipped with the right tools and understanding, can challenge the global order in ways that were unimaginable in previous centuries. This event also signals a redefinition of strategic influence. Historically, dominance was associated with economic control, territorial expansion, or sheer military capability. Today, influence is increasingly derived from technological ingenuity and the ability to operate within the blind spots of larger powers. Yemen's use of drones to strike critical infrastructure exemplifies this principle by exploiting gaps in Israel's digital defenses. It has asserted a form of power that is indirect, yet incredibly effective. The third hook is compelling. In a hyper-connected world, control is no longer monopolized by traditional superpowers. It is available to those who understand the rules of technological disruption. The ripple effects of such shifts are far-reaching. Other nations, observing this event, are forced to reconsider their own vulnerabilities. Investments in conventional weapons are no longer sufficient. Cyber resilience, decentralized infrastructure, and advanced surveillance capabilities are becoming central to strategic planning. The fourth hook emerges here. The balance of global power is increasingly dynamic, influenced by technological prowess and strategic foresight rather than historical legacies or military budgets alone. This democratization of disruption challenges old hierarchies and creates opportunities for actors previously considered marginal on the world stage. Furthermore, the strike illuminates the psychological dimension of modern power. Global perception matters as much as the physical impact of an attack. When a small actor successfully challenges a more powerful state, it reshapes international narratives, influencing allies, adversaries, and neutral observers alike. The fifth hook: in an era where information and perception flow instantaneously across borders, the demonstration of capability can be as consequential as the act itself. The global community witnesses a recalibration of what is possible, altering strategic calculations worldwide. Finally, Yemen's operation underscores the urgent need for nations to rethink security paradigms. Traditional reliance on military might and economic strength must be complemented by a deep understanding of technological vulnerabilities, asymmetric threats, and the emergent dynamics of influence. The strike is a stark reminder that the global power landscape is no longer static. It is fluid, contingent, and defined increasingly by those who can innovate, adapt, and strike with precision in ways that transcend conventional measures of strength. The drone strike on Tel Aviv's communications authority highlights a critical lesson that is often overlooked in discussions about national security. Resilience is not an optional attribute, it is essential for survival in the modern age. Pause and consider the implications of an entire nation suddenly cut off from its digital infrastructure. Hospitals struggle to coordinate, banks face operational paralysis, government offices are unable to communicate efficiently, and citizens are disconnected from information that affects their daily lives. The first hook here is stark. The real measure of a nation's strength today is not merely its ability to attack, but its capacity to absorb shocks, adapt quickly, and maintain continuity in the face of unprecedented disruption. Centralization, while efficient under normal conditions, exposes nations to a high degree of vulnerability when targeted. Critical systems are often concentrated in specific locations for easier management and control. In the case of Israel, the headquarters of the Communications Authority functions as the nerve center of the nation's internet and communication networks. Striking this one node created a cascade of operational failures across the entire country. This is the second hook. Resilience requires decentralization and redundancy. Modern states must anticipate that no single system, no matter how sophisticated, is invulnerable to attack, and that distributed networks can mitigate the catastrophic impact of targeted strikes. Technological sophistication alone is insufficient to guarantee security. The drones used in this attack were relatively small and cost effective, yet their impact was enormous. This demonstrates that resilience must be built not only through advanced technology, but also through strategic planning, foresight, and contingency measures. The third hook, in an era where disruption can come from unexpected and unconventional sources, preparedness is as crucial as the technology itself. A resilient system is one that can continue functioning even when part of its network is compromised, minimizing downtime and protecting critical operations. The human dimension of resilience is equally important. When communication networks fail, panic can spread quickly, both among the general population and within government institutions. Training, protocols, and crisis management become essential to maintaining order and effectiveness. The fourth hook emphasizes that resilience is not just about infrastructure, it is about people, decision-making processes, and the ability to respond rapidly under pressure. A nation that can mobilize its human and technological resources effectively during a crisis demonstrates true strategic strength. Economic resilience is another layer that cannot be ignored. Interruptions to communication systems disrupt financial transactions, supply chains, and commercial activity, affecting the broader economy. The fifth hook here is critical resilience must be integrated into all facets of governance and infrastructure. Redundant systems, backup communication channels, and contingency plans for economic continuity are not luxuries. They are imperatives for national stability. Nations that fail to invest in such measures risk cascading consequences that go far beyond the immediate impact of an attack. Finally, this event challenges global actors to rethink security paradigms in a deeply interconnected world. Traditional defenses against military threats are no longer sufficient. The Yemeni drone strike demonstrates that resilience is multi-dimensional, encompassing technology, human capability, organizational adaptability, and economic continuity. The sixth hook is compelling. In today's rapidly evolving landscape, the most powerful nations are those that not only have advanced capabilities, but also anticipate vulnerabilities, prepare for disruption, and maintain the flexibility to respond effectively when crisis strikes. Yemen's operation may be small in scale, but the lessons it delivers about resilience are monumental, signaling a new era in which the survival and stability of nations depend as much on adaptability and foresight as on traditional measures of strength. The drone strike on Tel Aviv's Communications Authority serves as a stark wake-up call for policymakers across the globe, demanding urgent reevaluation of strategies, priorities, and assumptions about security. Imagine the perspective of a nation that has long relied on conventional military might, advanced technology, and strong intelligence networks, suddenly confronted with the reality that a relatively small actor can disrupt its communication lifelines with precision. The first hook here is immediate and unsettling. No nation, regardless of military power or technological sophistication, is immune to disruption when critical infrastructure is vulnerable. Policymakers must recognize that the very foundations of state security are shifting in ways that require proactive, not reactive strategies. Modern threats are increasingly asymmetric, unconventional, and highly adaptive, Yemen's drone strike exemplifies this new paradigm, showing that strategic impact is not determined by the size of the force but by ingenuity, timing, and exploitation of systemic weaknesses. The second hook is clear. Traditional metrics of national power, army size, fighter jets, missile defense systems, no longer guarantee safety. Leaders must shift focus from purely offensive or defensive capabilities toward anticipatory measures that fortify critical systems against emerging vulnerabilities. This requires a deep understanding of technological networks, interdependencies, and potential points of failure that adversaries can exploit. Policymakers also need to consider the cascading effects of infrastructure disruption. Cutting off a nation's internet is not merely a technical inconvenience. It halts communication between government branches, disrupts financial systems, delays emergency responses, and creates public confusion. The third hook: in today's hyper-connected societies, vulnerabilities in digital infrastructure translate directly into strategic vulnerabilities. Decisions made in real time rely on instantaneous access to information, and any disruption can paralyze leadership, compromise response effectiveness, and undermine public confidence. Understanding this dynamic is critical for shaping policies that anticipate, rather than react to, crises. The global political landscape is equally affected by such asymmetric operations. When a smaller state or non-state actor demonstrates the capacity to challenge a technologically advanced nation, international power calculations shift. Allies, adversaries, and neutral observers reevaluate assumptions about influence, deterrence, and security. The fourth hook is profound. Policymakers must integrate the understanding that modern conflicts are not only kinetic but informational, technological, and psychological. Failure to grasp this multifaceted nature of threat can result in policy blind spots with devastating consequences. Investment in resilience becomes a strategic imperative. Redundant systems, decentralized communication networks, rapid contingency protocols, and cyber defense mechanisms are no longer optional. They are central to safeguarding national security. The fifth hook emphasizes that resilience must permeate every level of governance. From local administrations to central command, every layer of policy and infrastructure must be designed with disruption in mind. A state that cannot maintain operational continuity under duress is as vulnerable as one that lacks sufficient military hardware. Finally, the Yemen drone strike challenges policymakers to embrace a mindset of constant vigilance and adaptability. The modern security environment is dynamic, unpredictable, and often dominated by actors who operate outside conventional paradigms. The sixth hook is compelling. Preparedness requires foresight, innovation, and the willingness to rethink established strategies. It is no longer sufficient to rely solely on historical precedent or traditional measures of dominance. Nations that anticipate asymmetric threats, invest in robust systems, and cultivate adaptive, flexible leadership will be best positioned to navigate the challenges of a rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape. Yemen's operation is small in scale but monumental in lesson, signaling that the stakes for policymakers today extend far beyond traditional battlefields into the invisible, high-stakes arena of digital infrastructure and strategic foresight. In conclusion, the drone strike on Tel Aviv's communications authority is more than a news headline. It is a mirror reflecting the vulnerabilities of our modern world, the ingenuity of asymmetric actors, and the urgent need for resilience in a digital age. We must learn from this moment, adapt our strategies, and rethink our assumptions about power, security, and control. Because in today's world, the stakes are not only military, they are existential.